Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. When Cat Williams walked into that courtroom, nobody laughed. The man known for outrageous jokes and viral rants was suddenly under oath, and what he said had the entire industry on edge. For years, Cat had been calling out names: Jay-Z, Tyler, Perry, Kevin Hart, Steve Harvey, TD Jakes, Ricky Smiley. People dismissed him as crazy, but now those same names are appearing in legal documents tied to the Diddy investigation. In court, Cat confirmed it all. The parties, the NDAs, the hidden cameras, the careers bought and sold under one man's empire. And he didn't just mention Diddy. He exposed an entire web of celebrities who played their part to rise to the top. This wasn't a comedy special. It was a warning, because Cat Williams didn't just pull receipts, she made sure the whole world saw them, and the people he called out, they may never recover from what he revealed. The courtroom didn't know what to make of it. At first, reporters whispered. Social media went into chaos. But there he was, Cat Williams, suited up and solemn, walking through the courtroom doors, not as a comedian, but as a federal witness. No entourage. No fanfare, just a folder in one hand and a stare that could pierce through concrete. When he sat down and was sworn in, the courtroom hushed to full silence. And then, with the same voice that once brought down theaters in laughter, he began, "Let me say this one time under oath and without any punchline. I warned y'all years ago and you laugh." He told the court that everything they were about to hear wasn't new to him. He'd been saying it for over a decade, but people ignored him because of how he packaged the truth. When you make people laugh, they forget to listen. He said, "But I wasn't just telling jokes. I was slipping facts between the punchlines." Cat explained that years ago, he started noticing a pattern. The same group of celebrities getting invited to the same exclusive events, disappearing for a time, then returning with movie deals, awards, or distribution contracts. You'd see a brother at the bottom of the A-list one year. Then boom, 3 months after a certain party, he's starring in blockbusters. Then he dropped his first bombshell. You want to know the common thread? They all spent time in the same circle. Sean Diddy Combs. The court leaned in. Cat went on to say that Diddy wasn't just a music mogul, he was the gatekeeper to a darker part of Hollywood. It ain't about music anymore, he said. It's about control who. You know what you're willing to do and what you'll keep quiet about. And then he said something chilling. "I'm not here because I want to be. I'm here because if I don't talk now, I'll be next." With that, the stage was set. The court knew this wasn't going to be a typical witness testimony. This was going to be a storm, and every name caught in it was about to feel the wind. Cat didn't flinch when asked to provide names. "Y'all want names?" He said, "Cool, I got names." And he started listing them one by one. Jay-Z, Tyler Perry, Kevin Hart, Ricky Smiley, Steve Harvey Ludacris, LeBron James, TD, Jake Ashton, Kutcher, Justin Bieber. Each name sent shockwaves through the room. These weren't tabloid regulars or vague associates. These were some of the biggest figures in the entertainment world. Cat claimed they had all attended parties, events, or meetings hosted or facilitated by Diddy, and that those parties weren't the glamorous Hollywood get-togethers the public believed. These parties, he said, weren't about celebration, they were about initiation. He explained that Diddy used the parties to build leverage. Phones were taken, NDAs were signed, cameras were still rolling hidden. You think it's a coincidence that all these dudes toe the same line and protect the same people? Nah, they know they're being watched, or worse, recorded. Cat claimed Diddy kept dirt on everyone, tapes, photos, emails, and used it as insurance. He doesn't just collect blackmail and manufactures it. People walk into those parties clean. They leave with something on them they can't scrub off. And then he pointed out the patterns. Actors getting sudden green lights on films, comedians landing stadium tours with no prior buildup, musicians appearing on radio with no promotion, but instant support from Diddy-affiliated stations. You think talent alone gets you there, please? Half the people I named wouldn't even sell out a high school gym without that machine behind them. Cat finished that part of his testimony with this: "I'm not saying everyone at those parties participated in what happened. I'm saying they all knew what was going on. and not one of them said a damn thing that makes them complicit. If there was one name that sent visible discomfort through the courtroom, it was Tyler Perry, and Kat knew it. He locked eyes with Diddy, then turned to the jury and said, "Let's talk about media." He began by clarifying, "This ain't about gender or performance. This is about symbolism, ritual power. You think a billion-dollar studio just pops up because someone wears a wig and makes church jokes? Nah, that was a trade." Kat alleged that Tyler Perry's initial rise, his breakout plays, his first studio deals, and even his initial film premieres were all supported by Diddy's network behind the scenes. He didn't just find success, he was ushered into it. He claimed that early screenings of Diary of a Mad Black Woman and Ma's Family Reunion had Bad Boy staffers coordinating press passes and booking celebrities. That wasn't random, that was planned. They gave him a path in exchange for loyalty. Then Kat dropped another twist, Tyler told. "His male actors not to consort with me. You know why? Because I saw him at one of those parties, having a glorious time." He alleged that Tyler, once fully embraced by Hollywood, began distancing himself from anyone who could call out the truth. He didn't want the world to know who helped him rise, because then people would ask why Kat also mentioned several actors who changed drastically after working with Perry Lamb and Rucker Time and Durant. Look at how they were before. Look at what happened after. Finally, Kat dropped the line that would go viral within minutes. "Every year a new media, every year a new wig, and every year a new check." But never once, not once, has he used his platform to speak on what really goes on behind those velvet ropes. He paused, then said, "That's not entertainment, that's obedience." Cat Williams didn't hesitate when Kevin Hart's name came up. He looked at the jury and said, "Let's talk about the golden boy." Kat claimed that Kevin Hart's meteoric rise wasn't just because of hard work and talent. You think Kevin went from Bewette Comic View to billion-dollar franchises by accident. You think it's normal to go from canceled sitcoms to headlining stadiums in under 5 years. He leaned in. Nah, that's what happens when you say yes. That's what happens when you take the deal. Kat then addressed the infamous line that lit up the internet, his statement about turning down $50 million to keep his integrity and his virgin whole. He clarified it was more than a punchline. "That was me telling the world that Kevin said yes too. Something real, something that doesn't get talked about in Hollywood unless it's in a whisper." According to Kat, Kevin Hart's career surge began shortly after his involvement with certain producers tied to Diddy's investment network. Look at the timeline. Go ahead. The movies, the Netflix deal, the partnerships. There's always a bad boy signature somewhere on that contract. Kat revealed that Kevin was also spotted at multiple private Diddy-hosted parties, including one in Miami in 2013 that allegedly had a gold room setup identical to what Cassie Ventura had testified about in her own case. But the real twist came when Kat said Kevin wasn't just a party guest. He was a handler. He was the smiling face, the distraction. He helped make new recruits feel safe, comfortable. That's why he was always in the room, but never caught in the footage. Kat stated that when he refused a similar offer, he started getting blocked. Deals disappeared, tours got canceled. Meanwhile, Kevin's getting greenlit for Ride Along Night School. Jumanji. You don't get 3 franchise hits back-to-back unless someone upstairs signed off. He ended with a cold truth. They say Kevin Hart's funny, but that laugh came with a price. And I wasn't willing to pay it. Kat's attention then turned to 2 more names he claimed had everything to do with Diddy's rise and whose careers were used to normalize the power structure behind the scenes: Ricky Smiley and Steve Harvey. He started with Ricky. You ever wonder how Ricky Smiley went from prank calls to headlining movies and syndicated radio shows? It wasn't the jokes. It was the dress. Kat revealed that Ricky's breakthrough into TV and film came only after he attended a series of Atlanta-based parties hosted by Puffy's Southern team. They weren't open invite, they were groomed list, people who could be useful, people who could be silent, people who would comply. Then came the bombshell. I put it in my contract that I wouldn't work with Ricky again unless he was in a dress. Why? Because that's where he's most believable. I wanted the world to see how they reward submission. Kat claimed that Ricky's first Sunday role, where he appeared in a wig and dress, was the exact condition he placed to expose the pattern. You want that bag, you know what to do. And he did it. Then came Steve Harvey. Kat called him the godfather of commercial obedience. He alleged that Steve climbed through the ranks not only by playing the media game, but by playing the silence game. He saw what Diddy was doing, and instead of saying anything, he brought his daughter to dinner. With them, and Kat referenced Lori Harvey's much-discussed relationship with Diddy, and how Steve stood next to him, smiling even after his daughter had previously dated Diddy's son, Justin. What father does that one who's in too deep? He also accused Steve of stealing ideas, including a TV pitch that Kat had circulated in the early 2000s, The Steve Harvey Show. That was my format. They changed the name, changed the city, and gave it to the guy who said yes. Kat didn't hold back. Steve Harvey made his name hosting shows, writing books, and playing pastor, but he never opened his mouth when it counted. That silence, that's expensive. The courtroom tensed when Kat said the next name. TD. Jake Jakes. He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He said it slowly, like someone loading the final round into a chamber. Let me explain how this works, Kat said. When the scandals start creeping into the tabloids, when the whispers grow too loud, the industry doesn't run. It prays. Or at least they make it look like. They do. He accused Diddy's PR team of using the church as a shield, not a sanctuary. You think TD Jake preaching at Diddy-sponsored gospel concerts was about salvation. Nah, that was about sanitizing his image. Kat said, TD Jake offered a holy filter. For the darkest corners of entertainment, they threw concerts with velvet ropes, had gold-plated communion tables, VIP seating at a gospel show. Really, he claimed that Jake personally discouraged several gospel artists from speaking out about what they saw at crossover events tied to bad boy entertainment. They were told to keep quiet, that it would damage the church's outreach. But what about the victims? Then came the accusation that made headlines. TD Jake didn't just pray over Diddy, he helped clean up after him. Kat stated that church donations, million-dollar checks, and press-worthy charity events were all part of the cover. And if you were a spiritual leader who asked too many questions, you got pushed out, you didn't get airtime, you didn't get publishing deals. Kat even claimed TD Jake knew about a celebrity sex scandal tied to one of Did's assistants, but refused to go public. He told them to handle it internally. That's not what a pastor does. That's what a fixer does. He ended with this. There's nothing wrong with God, but there's a whole lot wrong with the people pretending to speak for him. And when you use faith to cover up sin, you ain't no prophet. You a pimp in a pulpit. Kat Williams looked directly at the jury, then at the prosecutors, and said calmly, "You want to know why nobody says anything? It's because everybody knows they're being watched." He explained that for years, people whispered about what went down at Diddy's infamous parties, the candles, the gold rooms, the celebrities entering one way and leaving changed. But the real secret wasn't what happened, it was how it was recorded. Kat testified that multiple insiders told him about high-tech surveillance built into the homes and hotels used for Diddy's private events. These weren't doorbell cameras, he said. We're talking pinhole lenses and furniture ceiling tiles that weren't ceiling tiles and encrypted backups sent to servers that didn't belong to Diddy. They belonged to his team. According to Kat, the point wasn't just security, it was leverage. You walk into one of those rooms and mess around, and suddenly Diddy's got you. Doesn't matter if you're famous, rich, straight, gay, cheating, whatever, he's got proof. And once he's got it, you either stay quiet or you're done. He said that several top celebrities confided in him over the years, not just about what they witnessed, but about footage that allegedly existed. One brother told me, "If they ever release what they got on me, I'll never work again. My family would disown me." Kat refused to name him, but said the fear was real. He brought up the now infamous quote from Ashton Kutcher, "What happens at a Diddy party stays at a Diddy party." And then Kat asked the courtroom, "Why do you think they say that? Because they know what happens and what's being filmed?" He connected these recordings to the sudden silence of many stars artists who once hinted at something darker, only to vanish, suddenly pivot genres, or start philanthropic rebranding. He alleged that blackmail wasn't just a theory, it was a system. And the recordings weren't random. They were cataloged, dated, weaponized. He paused before finishing. This ain't just about freak-offs and sex tapes, this is about control. He built a digital vault, and anybody who ever got too comfortable at one of those parties is probably in it. As the gallery sat stunned, Kat leaned into his next point. Let's talk about the ones who did try to speak up and what happened to them. He began by naming Dave Chappelle, who famously walked away from $50 million. People called him crazy, said he ran to Africa, but if you watched his specials, really watched, he was telling you something. He said the worst thing to call somebody is crazy, it's dismissive. And that's what they did to him because he refused to play ball. Then he brought up Martin Lawrence. Remember when he was running in the streets, waving a gun, screaming, "They're trying to kill me"? What? That wasn't just a breakdown. That was someone cracking under pressure, trying to warn us. Kat argued that these weren't isolated meltdowns. They were the result of trying to leave the machine. You don't just quit. You don't just say no. Not when you've seen what they've seen. He spoke of Jaguar, right? I'll be sure. And others labeled unstable for speaking about Kim Porter's death or Diddy's parties. It's the same playbook Kat said. You speak up, they call you a liar, then they call you crazy, then you disappear. Then he pointed to himself. Y'all remember when they said I was on drugs, said I was losing it. I wasn't high, I was heated. Because I saw how this system works, and I tried to warn people, and instead of listening, they laughed. He revealed that after calling out Diddy in previous interviews, he was audited, blacklisted, and even physically followed, 3 black SUVs, no plates parked outside my house for weeks, and no one would touch the story. Kat explained, that's why so many stars stay silent. They've seen what happens when you speak, so they stay in line. They take the deals. They keep smiling. He ended with a heavy statement. Hollywood doesn't destroy you with violence. It destroys you with silence, with labels, with exile. And I know because they tried it with me. As Kat stood for his final words, the courtroom wasn't just listening, it was holding its breath. He looked toward Diddy, then back at the jury. Y'all think this is about parties and scandal, but it's not. This is about power and who's willing to do what to keep it. He said the entertainment industry had become a factory of silence where loyalty was bought with money, fear, or footage. Every time a new artist gets a deal, every time a comedian gets a Netflix special, ask yourself what did they agree to? Who's really behind that green light? He called out the record, labels, the executives, the handlers, and the gatekeepers. It's not just Diddy. He's the face, he's the puppet. But there's a whole system behind him, and they're all complicit. Kat then dropped one final devastating truth. They asked me to sign something. 2 offered me a check that would have changed my life. All I had to do was never talk about what I saw, and I said no. He turned to the judge. I'm not suicidal. I don't own a gun. I love my family. And if something happens to me after this, just know I didn't do it. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Kat continued softer now. I made jokes. I warned you through comedy. Because if I said it straight, they'd take me out. But now I've said it in plain English. On record, and the world knows. He looked into the crowd, his voice trembling. To the ones who think they're protected, your time is coming. To the victims, still, afraid I see you. And to Diddy, he locked eyes with him. You didn't just ruin lives. You built an empire on them. But today that empire starts to fall as Kat stepped down from the stand. There was no applause, no cameras, just silence, the kind that only follows when truth finally cuts through the noise. As Kat moved toward the courtroom exit, the judge called out, Mr. Williams, is there anything else you'd like to add for the record? Kat paused. He turned back slowly as if the weight of decades had been lifted but not removed. Yeah, he said, staring now. Not at Diddy, but at the reporters, at the cameras, at the empty notepad in the stenographer's lap. There's one more thing. He took a deep breath, then pointed his finger. Not at one person, but at the room itself. You're all waiting on the next headline on who gets indicted next. But what you're really waiting for is permission. Permission to admit that you've known this was real the whole time. Y'all saw the signs, you heard the rumors. But you didn't want to believe your favorite artist was involved. You didn't want to believe your favorite pastor was complicit, or your favorite actor sold their soul just to get a franchise deal. He continued, This ain't new. This ain't even about me. It's about a generation that's been lied to manipulated, fed images of success while being hidden from the truth. Fame is the carrot, but behind the curtain, there's a price. And some people pay it with their bodies, some with their silence, and others with their lives. Kat then walked closer to the jury box, lowering his voice. I've watched too many good people disappear. Kim Porter, Andre Harrell. People who wanted to talk, but never got the chance. And now I'm here because I do have the chance. Because I will talk. He raised his voice one last time. To everyone who thinks I'm just a comedian, I am, but I'm also a witness, and what I witnessed will not be forgotten. He stepped back, nodded once at the judge, then walked out of the courtroom, not with fanfare, not with applause, but with something much heavier: truth. And behind that truth, a warning. Everything that was hidden is now in the